what your life is going to look like, your vision. Think about a wide vision that's going to encompass people who need your leadership. And third, I want to impress upon you goals. Goals are the stepping stones that are going to get you closer to your dreams, closer to your vision. I want you to make sure that every time you're setting goals, that they are aligned with your purpose. So again, purpose, vision, and goals. As we walk through this session, you'll see that our speakers have some of that in them, because all leaders are continuously evaluating their purpose, continuously expanding their vision, and continuously stretching their goals. So I want to start this morning by giving a special thanks to our sponsor, PNC, for allowing and helping us this session to happen. And I want to introduce Miss Maya Barbary from PNC. Maya, would you say a few words for us, please?
Good morning, Grace. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. This is such a wonderful event. It goes to show that we all have different career paths, but we're all leaders, especially in our community. I also want to impress upon you, my personal career has not been a straight path, but consistently throughout my career, I will say, network, meet people, get to know people. One of the things I've always done is raise my hand. Hi, I want to do this. Hi, I want, we need someone to do this. I'll do it. We need someone to do that. I'll do it. You get your name out there. People remember you because you were there when they needed somebody. Oh, we're looking for someone for this position. Oh, I remember Maya. I met her at this volunteer thing that she did. Why don't we reach out to her? And you get that tap on the shoulder to say, hey, there's a position in that field you volunteered in, that group you volunteered in. Are you interested? So never underestimate networking and knowing people. And don't be shy to start at college, because that's where I started. I went to university in Bolivia. And every time there was an event to volunteer for a workshop, for a seminar, for anything, I went there, because that's where all the people that you want to eventually work for are going to be, in these seminars and workshops. Get to know them while you're in college. Get them to know you, see you in these seminars and workshops consistently, because that has been a great help to me. So don't be afraid to raise your hand and say, I'll do it. That's my biggest piece of advice I could give career-wise. And PNC is very happy to be part of this. Education is a huge momentum for PNC. So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, Maya, for your sponsorship and for being with us today. Great advice, students. Speaking of volunteering, there are always volunteer opportunities in your community to help your community. So if you're looking for volunteers opportunities, you can always reach out to the chamber as well. But next up, I would love to introduce you to Ms. Lara Saavedra. She's a young entrepreneur, a change maker, and she's going to share her story with us on how she became a co-founder of her own company. So Laura, I'm going to hand it off to you. Welcome, and thank you for being with us here this morning.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you all for having me. Let me share my screen real quick. Can you all see that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So my name's Laura Saavedra. I use she, her pronouns. I am 17 and a senior at Charlotte Country Day School, and I'm super excited to be here. I'll talk a little bit about my story, how By Immigrant Hands came to be, sprinkle in some advice, and yeah, we'll get started. So just a little bit about me. Obviously won't go into all of this, but I really think that my intersectional identity is one of the most important aspects of my life, because it really has shaped, what I do, and each individual aspect has impacted By Immigrant Hands, whether it's directly, with this is the reason why I started it, or this was my motivation and my inspiration, or just the people that I've been able to reach with it has been crucial. But apart from By Immigrant Hands, I'm also super involved in the community and at school through different clubs, organizations, volunteer opportunities. I think that's crucial, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go on. So I wanted to start off with my family, because I really think that whenever you are starting an initiative, whether it's something small, whether it is, starting a small business like I did, you need to have some sort of support system, and it doesn't have to be your family, but I'm just very fortunate to have a family who served as that for me. whether it was my dad giving me, like the financial side of starting a company, or my mom helping me pack to go to events, or my sister helping me with like social media and graphic design. Like everybody plays an important role, and finding those people who you trust and who you really care about, I think, is crucial. Also just having people who will be fully honest and transparent with you. You don't really want all of like the sugar coating when you're trying to do something big and go through with your initiative. So very grateful. Both of my parents are from Colombia. They came to the US in 2000. My mom was 7 months pregnant with my sister, Camila. And then I was born 3 years later. So they were really the big kind of source of motivation and inspiration for By Immigrant Hands. But I'll talk more about the like direct story of how I started this company. Basically, I was the avid soccer player. That was what took up all my time. And then I got injured, and I realized I had to find something that would fulfill me the way the sport used to. Um, I had always really liked helping people, but never did anything super like big or continuous. I would help once in a while, like homeless luncheons and go to events and things like that. But then there was an opportunity to join the Migrant Assistance Project in Charlotte. Um, Being a daughter of immigrants made me super eager to help. It made the connection more direct. And basically what this group did was we would go to the Greyhound bus station, and we would meet the migrants coming through the buses from the southern border. Most of them were heading up north to Virginia or New York or New Jersey, to meet their sponsor families. And Charlotte was a mandatory stop. And a lot of people, didn't know this was happening in Charlotte. It was really centralized to just the bus station in our immediate group. Um, but, some buses brought 30, 40 migrants, and we were just there to provide basic food and drinks, hygiene products, clothing, and most importantly, just to restore their humanity. A lot of them expressed that had been taken away once they arrived in the US. And so trying to like rewrite that narrative and make sure that they felt important and they knew that they could keep going, and we were there to support them. That was really big. I spent most of my time, as you can see on the picture there on the left, with the kids. We would sit Greyhound bus floor and color, make stories with our stuffed animals, really anything possible just to make them feel like kids again. So then one of the days we were there, we called Manolo Betancourt, who's the owner of Manolo's Bakery. Some of you may know him, but he's just a really big, prominent Latinx community member and activist. And we call him up. My parents knew him one Friday at like midnight, and we're like, "Do you have any extra bread?" We're at the bus station. He's like, "Who's calling me for bread at this time?" But like always, he immediately came with a big bag of bread and coffee, and realized, like what was happening. So we sat down and we were just talking about what we thought about all the situation. It's really impactful when you're there. And he brought up the message "Made in America by Immigrant Hands." And it immediately resonated with me, knowing that I was born in the US to two immigrant parents. He used it as a motto for his bakery. And then, I mean, ultimately, everyone can relate to it, considering how prominent the immigrant community is and how crucial it is to the functioning of this country. And we knew that like what we were doing at the bus station was great, but it was kind of on a micro scale, and we wanted to create something more long lasting and sustainable, go macro, try to help more people, expand our work. And so we realized that sharing our message would be the best way to do that. And so we decided that would be through clothing and like other forms of merchandise, which I'll show later. So we kicked off By Immigrant Hands September of 2019. It has been a wonderful experience ever since, but I'll talk some more about that as we keep going, because it obviously hasn't been all glamorous. Definitely have been some difficult times. So before I kind of get into some more specifics, our overall mission is that we empower the immigrant community, make sure that they know that they're worthy and heard and making a difference, while giving back to a community that has given a lot to us. So 10% of all sales are donated to different nonprofits, mutual aid efforts, different community organizations. As of now, we've donated to Charlotte Bilingual Preschool, La Coalición, Our Bridge for Kids, Border Kindness, which helps the efforts at the southern border in Mexicali. Also Our Lady of Guadalupe, which tends to be the first resource for a lot of immigrant families. And we've also put together care packages for the tent city because we really do value intersectionality, which I'll also touch on a little bit later. One of the main challenges has been, first of all, starting off as a small business is hard on itself. You have to get yourself out there. We used to do a ton of community events, and doing it through a pandemic is a whole other loophole. No one is prepared for this. No one knew what was happening, and so you really have to learn to adapt and reinvent yourself. Starting off, we were doing it all at events, like in the middle picture, networking with people there, sharing our story, our mission, and the work. And all of a sudden, that was put to a halt. So having to transfer fully virtually, seeing in what ways we could still share our message. Starting to sell masks was not something that we ever had planned, but adaptability has been crucial, especially during this past year. And so we're grateful that By Immigrant Hands has been able to shift and continue thriving through it. But it definitely took some time. And support from other individuals. So here are just some of the things we sell. Obviously, you may be wondering, t-shirts and hoodies were what we started off with, but we've added different colors, tote bags, crew necks, masks. We have plans to expand soon. I remember clearly, I feel like it all came together so fast just with the support of other people. And I couldn't really believe I was about to like co-own this company. I remember our first event was the Latin American Festival in 2019. And the first hardship was it was 11 p.m. the night before and our shipment had not arrived. And it wasn't till like 1 a.m. that day when we finally see the box and are able, we had to wake up super early and start folding everything, getting everything ready. So there are like some smaller scale challenges that are thrown, but with adaptability and other people's support, we've been able to pull through. So I wanted to talk about intersectionality because I really think that anytime you're involved in the community in some shape or form, whether that is, through a small business or through just like an overall organization, helping with mutual aid, et cetera, you really have to ask the question of who are you benefiting? And if it's not all people, then like, what can you do to get there? Or, do you need to reform what you're doing, make it more accessible to others? And so that's been something that has always been in our mind, especially just since I am very involved with social justice and activism as a whole. I really understand, the fact that if we're helping the immigrant community, the needs of the different specific social identities within the immigrant community require and desire different things. So, for example, like we know right now, like the Black immigrant community is being deported at an extremely higher rate than white immigrants, and that's just like one example. But there were also, for example, the multiple deaths of trans migrants, which all happened in the span of a month. So just understanding that, that overlap of social identities is crucial wherever you're making an impact and making a difference. And a lot of it is listening. Like, you may think that you know a lot and you may think that you know the issue, and that can definitely be true. But until you start listening to the needs of the community, you start listening to other people, feedback, what they want to see, that's when you start being more successful, because then it's a collective effort. And yeah, you may be leading it, but truly you're not the only one. And truly it should be what the community wants, not just what you want individually. Why it's also important, like I said, understanding social issues is crucial for our job, considering we're helping the immigrant community, but that is directly related to different issues, whether that's like the climate crisis or the movement for Black lives and police brutality. They all tie in, especially considering ICE is such a big part of the issues the immigrant community faces. And that kind of bolded part at the bottom where it says activism without the inclusion of marginalized voices is really just a form of oppression is really crucial. I know that Maya touched on networking, but I also think that networking has been really big, and sometimes it's harder when you're younger because, you feel like you don't know as many people or you won't be heard. But networking on all scales is crucial. I really like this slide because you see on the right, I am just kind of educating kindergarteners on what immigration is. And you know, how they can make a difference as a kindergartner. And then you compare that to the middle section with prominent community members at events. There's like Councilman Braxton Winston and Angelica at the bottom. And then you see Luis Fonsi on the left. So completely different people. But on all scales, it's super important, you know, just because a community member has a title or a name doesn't mean that their opinion is so much more important than someone else's or more important than yours. And so gathering that collective and holistic view is really important. And for me, like the networking really started within my family and Manolo, and then it was the people that they know and the people that they know. And that's ultimately how this like Luis Fonsi post ended up happening. I don't even know all of the layers of connection, but um, it's super cool to see. And sometimes you don't see it directly, and the rewards of networking aren't immediate. But, you know, as time goes on and you start realizing like, oh, I need this, or like, maybe it would be cool here, or they're reaching out to you, you kind of see everything coming together. And that has been one of my favorite parts of By Immigrant Hands, is just the connection that it's brought me with other people in the community. Right now it's virtually, obviously, or like through events like these, but also just in person was great too. I kind of wanted to end on the portion of getting involved. I think, you know, you can hear all of these wonderful people talk and hear about their stories, and sometimes it can be overwhelming of like, well, how did they do all of this? That seems like a lot of work. Like, that's too much. That sometimes is the case for me. You know, I hear all these speakers and it's like, that seems very distant, but there really are ways in which you can personally get involved. And also to it, there's varying degrees, you know, like you don't need to start your own business tomorrow. You can start learning about the community. You can do whatever you want. But kind of my main advice that I tell sort of all ages is like taking something that you're already passionate about, or you already do, or you're already involved in, and then maybe seeing if you can shift it to, you know, be more community oriented or community involved, or helping with mutual aid. Because you don't want it to feel like a burden or like a chore, something that you don't want to do. You really want to enjoy whatever you're doing. Um, so for example, like I'm part of a lot of climate organizations. There's like a climate strike at the bottom. That's the picture. And there's a girl there who loves baking. And so she was sort of like our community baker. So she would bring cookies to all of our strikes. She would make bags to hand out the tent city. You know, it's really just using your current passions and transforming it. Specifically, world has to offer. And it's really beautiful to see all the different community members when they come together to help your goal.
Has been a leader in this community, spotlight and making sure that we retain Latino talent. And she is also a change maker in our community. So I want to introduce Gina Esquivel, and you're going, Gina, thank you for being here with us today. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Grace. What excitement for this morning, just chatting with such a delighted number of folks and have the participation of many future leaders in our community. So I want to welcome you to our conversation today, which is going to be centered around leadership and entrepreneurship and empowerment. It's all about how do you move yourself to the next level? How do you unlock your own potential? How do when you're showing up, how you're showing up. So I want to make sure first, are you able to see my screen? Yes, perfect, perfect. These P's, I like to do a very interactive, all engage in different ways. But I'm going to introduce a couple of things about our purpose in life. And Grace, because you were setting that, and as many times you've heard, I got this job that paid X amount of money. But very few times we hear about passion coming through work. It's very few times that we actually listen a person describing their job as their passion. And there is a huge step in order for you to be able to make the link between the two. And it requires you to get to know yourself. Passion overweight the working for a paycheck. So they say you would never work a day in your life if what you do is what you do with passion. So believe me, after so many years in the field, there are moments where I realize that this is my calling, this is my ministry. And I want to be able to set a tone for you that it will bring you as close as possible, channel your passion into the future